So good morning, everyone. My name is Shola Ajani, School of Consulting. Today, we're looking at pricing. How do we price? How do we price effectively? It's a different thing to price or to have a product on offer for a particular price. And it's another thing for the price to represent the value that you'd like to place on that product. And so we're going to be looking at pricing today. How do we set our prices as consultants? How do we ensure that we get the best value for our products and services? How do we ensure that we negotiate effectively? How do we ensure payments? So apart from the issue of the lack of capacity or competency in setting prices, it's not unusual for consultants to complain that not only are they setting prices or unable to set prices, even for the assignments and the briefs that they have done, they struggle to get paid. So there are so many issues that come into play with pricing. In some instances, people on the price. They're on the price thinking that will get them to get the consulting assignment. So is on the pricing a good strategy? And is this sustainable? Those are the things we're looking at today. What markets do you play in? Do you play in the mass market? Are you playing in the average market? Or are you playing in the premium market? So how have you positioned your services? How have you positioned your brand? This impacts a lot on your price and the ability to pay. Talking about the ability to pay, at the end of the day, no matter the price you set for your products, the most important thing is that I say to people to ask is, what is the client able to pay? The client's ability to pay. So there's several things we put into consideration here. So that's why we're taking this course this morning, looking at how do we set our prices? How do we ensure that we don't charge? How do we make sure that we get value for the products that we offer clients? And how do we ensure that we get paid? And where payment is being delayed, what can we resort to ensure that we get paid as consultants? So that's what we're looking at today. And I'm hoping that we'll all have a good time. So I'm going to be sharing my slide. So please, by all means, you can always ask questions or stop me to ask questions, but there'll be times for questioning. But if there's a question you want to ask, and you can simply raise your hands, or raise your hands on the screen to let me know that you want to ask a question. Okay. All right. So you can always do that at any time. Okay. So where are we? Let's make a start. So what we hope to achieve today is basically, how do we set and negotiate consulting or consultancy fees? How do we set it? What can be our guide to setting what we charge in terms of our fees when we offer services? Some professional bodies, I must say this, have professional standards of how they set fees. For every particular assignment or for different projects, there are guidelines on how and what to charge. But in the absence of that, how do you set your fees? What are the determinants? What are the factors that you take into consideration to charge your fees to ensure that you have sufficient income, as the case may be? Okay, so that's what we're looking at basically. My name is Shola Ajani. For those who don't know me, I introduced myself earlier. By the grace of God, I have 25 years consulting experience prior to starting the School of Consulting. The vision of the School of Consulting is basically to train aspiring consultants, because we realize that there's a gap between access to consulting and consulting itself. And because anybody can label themselves consultants, well, we started to basically start training consulting. And our curriculum is based on the competency framework of the ICMCI. The ICMCI stands for International Council for Management Consulting Institutes. They're in Switzerland. It's one of the largest professional bodies for management consultants. So basically, that's what led to what we are doing. Okay. So before we start, any questions? Anything that needs to be cleared up? Any questions before we make a start? Anything that needs clarifications? Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, good morning,
yes,
Mrs.
Can hear you from here.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes,
good morning, everyone can hear me. Right, fantastic. So I'm going to make a start now. So what is price? What is price? I have here is the amount someone is prepared to pay for a product. Price and value are quite similar. So what value are you placing on a product? So as consultants, we have different services, we have products. The question is, what is the price you're placing on your service? What is the value that you place on your service that is paid in terms of price? Say, for instance, you offer a professional service to a client and you decide that this is the price that, this is the value you've attached to it. That value is represented by the price you attach to that service. Is the price you attach to that service. And so, because we are all individuals, we may end up charging different prices for the same products because we're all different. So I might attach a different set of values to my products, and you might attach a different set of values to your product simply because we're different individuals. In some professional bodies, the standards are fixed, the pricing are fixed, so we may not have the luxury of setting different prices in such instances. But where we don't have the price fixed, a lot of consultants have struggled to price effectively. As a matter of fact, a lot of consultants, excuse me. Yeah, sorry about that. As a matter of fact, quite a few consultants end up undercharging, charging below what they ought to charge, simply because they probably done their costing, they look at the cost and they think this cost is too high. Or what if somebody else offers this client a lower cost? Do I stand at a disadvantage by offering the real cost or a lower cost? So this is a very crucial issue that most consultants face on a day-to-day basis. And so we're trying to look at it this morning. How do we resort that? Is this something that we can resolve? How do we ensure that when we quote for services, it's not a simple, straightforward no answer? How do we have different pricing structure that allows room for negotiation, at least to get an insight into what the client is able to pay, as opposed to giving the client a specific amount of price and then you get turned down without the option of negotiating. So that's very critical, that we have the skill to be able to offer products at prices that clients will see as an opportunity to ask questions. In the absence of the opportunity to ask questions and is a no answer, that's a closed door. So those are some of the things we're looking at today, and hopefully we should be able to achieve that. Okay, now before I talk about pricing, there are some fundamental underlying issues that you needed to have had in place. And these issues actually affect your pricing. They affect your value. Remember what we said earlier? Value is the premium I place on what I'm offering. And I'm saying, for you to have what I am offering, this is the cost I'm attaching to it. This is the value, and you can acquire this product or service at this price, at this cost, and that's the price I attach to it. However, there are three fundamental things that will affect the value of your products, that will affect the price ultimately you place on your products. Number one is your brand identity. Your brand identity as a consultant. So in our larger class of the School of Consulting, we actually take time to teach about these elements before you even go to the market, because these are foundational. Once you have this in place, then you can actually position your brand, and then you can pitch how much, where you want to serve and how much you charge. Now, unfortunately, many people don't do this. And in the absence of this, we are unable to pitch or position your brand. So it's very critical that you identify what your brand is, what are the values, to be able to price it accordingly. Because if you don't do that, you end up doing yourself injustice. So what is your brand identity? So this is a question you have to ask yourself. It is not within the scope of this training to talk so much about this, but you need to get this right. What is your brand identity? Your brand identity is how your clients see you. How does your client see you? What is their perception? In fact, brand identity is split into two: the brand perception and the brand experience. Brand perception simply says, before they meet you, what is their impression of you? When I say you, I'm talking about your consultancy. What is their brand? What is your brand identity, which is made up of what is the brand perception? Brand perception is the impression or perception a client has before they meet you. They've gone on a website, they've heard about you. What's your brand perception? Many consultants are not interested in this simply because they're not aware. But you've got to have a brand identity. And so apart from the brand perception, the other aspect of brand perception is brand experience. So eventually when they meet you, what is the experience that they have with you? So that's your brand identity, represented by your name, represented by your logo, represented by your colors, so many things. That's your brand identity. How do people see you? How do potential clients see you? That's your brand identity. That has a long way in determining how much you charge. What's your brand identity? We talk about luxury cars, we talk about a Range Rover, talk about a BMW. Oh, straight away, the brand identity you attach to that by perception is, oh, these are expensive cars. And you expect their prices to reflect such figure. Toyin says, you can't hear me. Let's check that. 1 minute, please. Toyin, can you hear me now? Let me just put that on. Okay, thank you. So, as I was trying to explain, we basically have some things to take into consideration by way of, as part of the issues coming into play. And that has to do with our brand identity. And I was trying to give an example. For instance, if you hear about a Range Rover or a BMW or a Mercedes car, you straight away think, oh, it's an expensive car. That is your brand identity. So if I hear about your consultancy, what identity, what perception comes to me? You've got to have a brand identity. And people take time to build their brand identity. So before you can start charging at this particular rate, think about your brand identity. Then number two is your differentiation. Your differentiation. As a consultancy, what or why are you different from the next consultant? Now, differentiation is a function of similarities or otherwise. Now, if you are among several people offering the same services, the law of demand and supply will kick in. So for instance, and I say to my colleagues with all due respect in the education industry, you've got to really differentiate yourself. Otherwise, people will see you as just being in the education industry, and then it forces the price down because seemingly there are many consultants in that area. But even though you might be in that area in the education industry, you've got to differentiate yourself to be able to charge more. Otherwise, the law of demand and supply, there are very many people who label themselves education consultants. So if somebody approaches you as an educational consultant, they are approaching you with that mentality that, oh, there are other people they can go to. even though you might be offering something differently, even though you might be having a particular product that are quite unique to you. So you've got to differentiate yourself, especially in a crowded market, especially in a crowded industry. Likewise, consultant. I mean, everybody is a consultant, but if you don't differentiate yourself in terms of your value offering, in terms of what you can have to the client will simply, by your perception, oh, he's a consultant. So these two things are very key. Then number three is your positioning. How have you positioned yourself in your market? So you can be in a crowded market, like the education industry that we talked about, like the consultancy market. You can be in a crowded market, but how have you positioned yourself? How have you positioned yourself in the mind of your clients? So when your clients hear about you in the brand identity, there's a place they have placed you. For instance, in consulting, if we hear about KPMG, Deloitte, Pricewaterhouse, and there's one more, they are called the Big Four. Why are they called the Big Four? Why? Because they've been positioned as the biggest consultants. The Big Four, the KPMG, they call them the Big Four. KPMG, Pricewaterhouse, Deloitte, and another one I can't remember right now. They are called the Big Four. So all of these things are very crucial even before you enter the market. Most people enter the market and then trying to put their brand identity, trying to do all of this. But if you're already in the market, you need to go back and work on your brand identity. Once people hear your name, what do they think of? Why are you different? Why are you different to the next consultant? And what position? What position? Positioning can be in terms of, oh, we are the first in the market. We are the first to offer this. We are the best. We do this. We provide this as you position yourself. And let me give you an example about positioning, which if this will make sense. In my early days as a consultant, I actually entered into the consultancy service industry by offering recruitment services. I started by offering recruitment services to the banks. And for 2 years, I was trying to recruit for one of the old banks now. It's called Diamond Bank. It's been taken over by Access Bank. And for 2 years, I struggled to gain any recognition with them. I sent proposals to them. I did all manner of things. I didn't get a single reply. Now, after 2 years, we did a market research and realized that there were some areas where they were not being served. There were some areas of recruitment, there was some type of staff they were looking for that they were struggling to find. And so what do we do? We created a new category in recruitment. We called it diaspora recruitment, international recruitment, basically recruiting Nigerians from abroad. We call it diaspora recruitment. And so even though it's recruitment, but we created a new category called diaspora recruitment. So in your industry, you can create a new category from the existing industry because there might be some clients who need those services in this new category. Now, the Diamond Banks of this world that we're trying to serve for so many years, the moment we created a new category and we called it a new name, even though it was recruitment, but we're offering a service they were looking for. That is positioning. So then we were able to say, oh, if you're looking for Nigerians in diaspora want to come back home, come and talk to us. That is positioning. You've got to position yourself. And when you position yourself, in most cases, maybe you are the first to get to that position, you can name your price. That's where I'm going. Another example I'm going to give you is the milk market. In the early days, we only had tin milks. We only had tin milk, peak milk. I don't know how many people know peak milk. We only had peak milk in the early days. And a company was trying to break into that market, but there was no point in